YouTube, how's it going? The GOAT House is back after a Sunday slate of games in NFL Week 3. Here to recap it, give you my takeaways like we do every single Monday. A lot to go over, a lot happened in this big Week 3. Can't wait to break it down. Monday Night Football, Ravens, Chiefs tonight. We're going to be live tweeting that, giving you my takeaways, my thoughts on Twitter. So you're going to want to follow that. If you're a football fan, a GOAT House fan, it's a must follow in my opinion. Constantly talking about the NFL on there. Link down below if you need that. If you need that link to give us a follow, be much appreciated. Instagram, podcast, Patreon, plenty more going on here at the GOAT House. Link down below for those things as well. Trying to reach 60K. We got weekly picks, score predictions, power rankings updated every Tuesday, so can't wait for those tomorrow. All that is updated weekly, always adding more types of videos as well, keeping you guys involved. So you're going to want to subscribe, turn notifications on me, much appreciated. A lot to go over real quick. We have a Patreon, patreon.com/thegoathouse. Junior score predictions are on there every week. My locks of the week, last 2 weeks, have done pretty darn well on those. College football score predictions. Updated playoff predictions will start in the near future, and we'll continue to update those every single week. Bonus content, Discord access, much more. Link in the description. Would be much appreciated if you can just check it out there. See maybe if you're interested. But first game, we're starting with a good one here. Nick Foles. This was the ultimate Riz Bowl, I think, because I've been calling for Nick Foles. He needs to be the starter week 1. The Bears are much better with him. Trying to tell the people that are a little attached to Trubisky for a second year straight that he's really not the answer. And here we are, and it really just shows in this game. First thing that stands out, Nick Foles with only a half of football, I worried about Nick Foles getting thrown into a bad situation. They're just getting completely outplayed. They're getting beat big. Getting thrown into a half of football, and he knows the offense. He runs the offense. He makes adjustments at the line, all better than Mitchell Trubisky right off the bat. That says a lot. I mean, who would have thought that? I wasn't the one saying or anything saying that Nick Foles is perfect for this Nagy offense. So it looked good. It looked good for us here right off the bat with Nick Foles in a ridiculous comeback for the Bears, their second one of the year. But this one would not have happened with Trubisky, and that's just plain and simple. Nick Foles, the change that he made, I think other things that stand out, Nick Foles just so calm in the pocket, making throws under pressure. I mean, that last touchdown that last touchdown to take the lead there was Anthony Miller. Ridiculous. Got drilled as he threw that, kind of going across the field too. Perfect ball. Just things that we just haven't seen in Chicago ever. It feels like, in a long time. And that's kind of just getting thrown into a bad situation with a half of football. All that was able to happen. I think Trubisky can match the ball velocity maybe of Foles, but it just comes out so much cleaner, so much smoother. And again, I think something that stands out here as well. Not only did Nick Foles and the Bears come back in this game, they win by 4. That's pretty comfy. It wasn't super comfortable. I guess the Falcons had we'll talk about it, they had a shot at the end of the game. But there was some plays like kind of left on the field. We had that interception, which was, I think, nobody's fault really. Robinson probably should come down with that, but I'm not blaming anybody there. Interception on Foles, it's not a bad one. There's much worse interceptions. I think it's a really good play by Darqueze Dennard. That was a ridiculous play. That's hard to make there. I think it was the right call, but again, could have went either way. I don't think Robinson was completely down. I think before he got completely down, the ball was ripped. But my point is that's a play that can go either way. Some play left off in the field, that could be 6 points right there. They had that drop. Nick Foles had a good ball, 4th down. It was a drop. One that, could go either way. Make the catch, that's a touchdown. My point is, not only did Nick Foles play good, come back and win this game, it almost felt like in dominating fashion. The Bears dominated the Falcons in this game with just a half of football because they made one change. So that was ridiculous to me. The way the second half went, I feel like the score of this game, I feel like the Falcons shouldn't even have a shot. They shouldn't even have a shot on that last drive. Bears dominated this game. But then I guess you can argue the other side. No Julio for the Falcons, but that was before the game. I think Russell Gage getting hurt in this game was big. They had that bomb, Matt Ryan, before the Bears took the lead. Matt Ryan had that bomb to Zacchaeus, who played a decent game, but had that bomb to him and overthrew him by a yard or two. I would like to think, and maybe Matt Ryan's going to make a better throw there. It really wasn't a bad throw there. I think one of those other receivers, if they're in the game, that removes Zacchaeus for the game. They probably make that play, and we could be talking about a Falcons win right now. So you can look at it both ways. I thought the Bears just completely dominated the Falcons second half. Completely. They were the better team. Plain and simple. Like I said, a couple plays kind of left on the field, and that could have been a bigger win, easier win for the Bears. But then again, some plays like that for the Falcons. I really don't know what is happening with the Falcons in these comebacks. Again, another win for the Bears, and it looks like you can move the ball in their defense, which is they're supposed to be one of the better defenses of football. I still think they kind of are, but you can kind of move the ball. Todd Gurley was running extremely well. Wish they would have got him the ball a little more because they had a really tough time tackling him, at the line and then past that. I wish they would have got him the ball a little more. It's really tough to tell like why they're blowing these comebacks. I think the Bears, Nick Foles and the Bears kind of just made Allen Robinson that, a beastly play just could not be stopped down the sideline. I think they're big time players. That's another thing. They're big time players you see them more. You notice them more with Nick Foles in the game. It is night and day. It is not even close. And Nick Foles, first year on the Bears, it's going to be his first week starting next week. There could be struggling. There could be moments where he struggles. I wish he started week 1. I know the Bears won those games. I think those games would have been I guarantee it would have been much, much more comfortable, easier to win, not as nerve-wracking at the end if they had Nick Foles in there. But, it is night and day. It is ridiculous how much. I think the weapons of the Bears are very stoked. Unfortunate Cohen went down. He had actually a big play, a little bit before he went down. So that was unfortunate. David Montgomery still looks pretty solid. I think the offensive line, given how they played last year, they look pretty solid. But trying to figure out what's going on with the Falcons, man. I think coaches need to be. There need to be changes with the coaching staff, I think, for sure. You can't allow this to happen. It felt like the Falcons, let's say the Lions, because it was the same thing. We'll talk about the Lions later. It feels, the Lions and the Falcons actually feel similar in a way. We'll talk about what I mean, but, you'll probably know right now what I mean. It feels like, especially against the Bears, it felt like the Falcons can move the ball almost when they chose. I don't want to say, if they chose to, they move the ball, not quite like that, but it felt almost like that they can move the ball when they wanted to, and then to kind of slow that down and stop the Bears from, and not stopping the Bears from scoring, what was the reason, but, even that last drive, it's like, okay, where's this been? They get on the ball, big completion, they get on the ball, big completion, get on the ball, pretty solid completion, get on the ball, throw the pick, even though the pick happened, and that was a bad overthrow by Matt Ryan. He had a guy open. Eddie Jackson made the play, but he had the guy open. So that's kind of on Matt Ryan there. But my point is they were moving the ball just fine. Where was that when they were stuck at 26 points? The Falcons 0-3, 2 comebacks allowed. Couldn't keep up with the Seahawks in week 1. It's tough. Credit to the Bears there. They made the right move, and they look like a much better team. We'll see if there's maybe some, some growing pains perhaps, Foles getting thrown in there, but it's just night and day. It is the much better option. 30 points on the board with really just a half of football for the Chicago Bears. That tells you kind of enough there, but there's a lot of things I talked about that kind of shows the difference. Moving on. Wow, this was a game. Okay, so this game was 28-3. Even before this point, leading up to this point, I am sitting there watching what is going on with the Bills. And the Rams have been a very good team so far this year. But I did pick the Bills in this one, so it's not like surprising. I guess how the game unfolded was surprising. But okay, so back to the Bills are up 21-3, whatever it is, 28-3 at some point. But I am sitting there saying, my God, and I've been a believer of the Bills, but my God, is this looks like the best team in football. This looks like pure domination, and it's not like getting up by a fluke or anything. It looked ridiculous. Both sides of the ball. You see how much better they are getting Tremaine Edmonds, and Matt Milano back. Both those guys, just lights out, getting interior pressure. They didn't get a whole bunch of sacks or anything, so I think, in a way, credit to Goff for getting rid of the ball, but they were getting the pressure like I kind of expected. And that was kind of the problem for the Bills last year. Kind of one thing they were missing on the great defense. They were getting pressure. You just can't get the sack. So maybe something to work on a little bit. Not really super worried. But, lights out. And the thing that's standing out the most on the offense, and even though they let the Rams come back, they did still win. But you still got to give them credit here. They scored 35 points. But the thing that stands out about Josh Allen and the offense that's kind of going unnoticed to me and where people are not giving credit to Josh Allen, not getting credit to the Bills, is how open, how wide open, how deep this playbook is. The play designs within this playbook, and credit to the staff as well. But I mean, you got every type of offense basically in this offense. I mean, how do you game plan for this? You got options at the right times. I mean, you got play action plays. They run a lot of play action. You got, I mean, just pocket passes. I mean, you got Josh Allen being able to, you can throw him on a rollout. He can run. You can run it to Singletary. Everything part of the NFL game is in this playbook. And that, again, people, that kind of goes unnoticed, but when it is noticed, I think people give credit where credit is due to kind of who creates the playbook, the play callers, the coaching staff, and then calling it at the right time, and maybe some pieces on this offense. But where credit needs to be going more is this playbook is only allowed to be that open with a quarterback like Josh Allen. And that's all the throws he makes, all the runs he makes. I want to give him more credit for the playbook, because that's only possible. You can't have – every coach wants to have that playbook. Every coach wants to have that playbook. You only can have it with certain quarterbacks. So that is – I think no one is talking about that. That's something that I'm saying here. That's where I'm more impressed there. And it's just pure domination for most of this game because of that. I think it's a big reason. Like, how do you game plan for that? I think they started to adjust a little bit. So credit to, Aaron Donald is simply – he's the best defensive player in football. Plain and simple at this point. You kind of had Khalil Mack with them there back and forth, which one's the best defensive player for a bit, but Aaron Donald has pulled away. I mean, this is the best defensive player in football. Absolutely dominant. You can see him change the game. I talk about interior pressure is game-changing. I mean, you see him single-handedly change the game when he's doubled even. Ridiculous. So they started to adjust, and they actually went from getting no pressure to getting pressure. I think that was the difference. That was really the difference in the game. And Josh Allen was playing great. But I almost wish they would have ran the ball to Singletary more. Singletary looked like he was about to have a good game. So it's weird, though. It's weird they allowed this comeback. And then you had the interception, which it's tough to tell. I know Bills fans are like 100% certain that was an interception. And, it's tough to call that an interception, but it's one that it's so tough to tell where and a similar thing happened in the Bears game, too. This one was tougher to tell, but that's one where I'm not saying 100% the wrong call. I can't really say that, and that did shift momentum. Calls by the refs can shift momentum for sure, but you cannot blame it on the refs for coming back, letting a team come back like this. I don't know what happened there. You saw Hyde go down for a bit. At one point maybe that affected them. They were getting less pressure. It's an offensive line that you should definitely get pressure on the whole game, and you got to finish. You got to get to the quarterback. So that was kind of a problem. I think not running the ball more when they're up, which is weird because I can't stand, probably more than anything, I can't stand when teams get super conservative and just run the ball to the running back and kind of just blow comebacks. So I'm glad they don't do that. I can't complain too much, but Singletary was having a pretty good game, and the Rams were just, all right, full go. We got nothing to lose here. We'll just rush the quarterback. Let's send some people. They're pretty good with their blitz calls over there. They made that change at defense coordinator. They've been pretty, even though 35 points were given up here, they were pretty. I'm not worried. I'm really not worried too much there. So that was the main reason for the comeback. The Bills' defense needed to step up a little more, and they actually came back and took the lead there. Which was impressive. Getting Kupp going, getting Robert Woods finally going. He was very quiet for some times. They were putting the ball on the ground a little bit. Reynolds fumbled the ball. Other ones they got back. They made plays down the stretch. They made plays there. They were getting some good field position, but they were making plays. As a tremendous comeback for the Rams. I'm still in the mode where I'm impressed with the Rams. It's a tough loss, but I'm impressed with them. I'm impressed with the amount of points in this game. But that last drive, the Rams giving up that huge play to Cole Beasley. I mean, you can't give that up. I love the secondary so much, but you can't give that up. Josh Allen stepping up the pocket, letting it sling. You see that ball velocity. I'm just so impressed with Josh Allen. It's a guy that I always believed in too. It's a guy that, I believe in this team, believe in Josh Allen for some time here. But again, I keep saying it's not a guy he's not supposed to, according to everybody. I think even Bills fans, from when they drafted him, he's not supposed to be this good at this point. He had tons of potential. Everybody knew that for the most part. Some people didn't really agree that he'd reach that, but I think everyone was pretty much wrong that he would reach this at this point. But yeah, what they're able to run, the different variety of plays they're able to run, I think that's what stands out. that's where I'm impressed. And nobody's going to talk about that. So I'm glad that I'm the one that kind of saying that, because I think that stands out, a lot. I think that stands out to me. But that last drive, yeah, and then, the play where Josh Allen got the face mask call, the strength on this kid is unbelievable. Somebody on the Rams probably should have went for the ball. I'm not saying they would have got it out for sure, but somebody probably should have went for the ball. But even though he got the face mask, right call, the strength was ridiculous. So it looked like for a second the Bills were they're for sure scoring. They're going to win this game here. And then that face mask, that sack/face mask, he threw it away. So it wasn't a sack. I don't know how he got that away. But I'm like, all right, now it feels like they got to go too far again. And then, the pass interference call, at first, I'm thinking that's not catchable. Just live. Not catchable, so it's an interesting call. But then looking at the replay, it definitely was questionable. It's still, it's catchable, excuse me. The ball definitely was catchable, but still I'm mixing my words here, still a questionable call because they kind of contacted each other. I do think the defender kind of grabbed him first. It was unnecessary. It looked like he was kind of holding him in place a little bit. It's a tough call to make in that point, and it felt like the game maybe was over for a second there. It's not one that I'm going to pound the table and say, that's wrong, that's bad. It's tough to say it's a 50-50 one for me. So the refs, it's one of those situations where, the refs kind of got a tough job. That's where you realize that sometimes it is a tough game to call. There's some things where are blatantly wrong, I think, in games across the NFL. It's just the NFL, it's just officiating. That's tough, and then they just design up a really good play. There is too much to cover. Not just talking about targets like receivers. There is too much. They're gonna run the option. Are they gonna throw out of the option? They're gonna play action. There's just too much the Bills can do, and that's where the credit goes. Rams, I'm still impressed with them. Very impressed with the Bills. But even though most people will say that that bad call, potentially bad call, like I said, that's 50-50 too on that pick from Josh Allen. It was the reason they came back. It played a part, but you can't allow them to get 32 points like this, or they had 3 at that point. So, whatever the math. Forget the math. You can't allow that. So I'm not really too worried. I still like this defense. Very impressed. Next game, Washington and Cleveland. It's not a game where, I try to focus on every game. It's tough to do. So I apologize if I don't talk about a game a whole bunch. But it's not a game that I saw as much of as some of these other games. But yeah, I'm surprised that the Browns scored 34. That's impressive. Chase Young did get knocked out of the game. I'm not trying to take anything away from the Browns here. The matchup kind of felt right here. This is why I love getting past weeks 1 and 2, just playing the matchup game. And there's another game that's even more where I played the matchup game. I think that's how I do well, picking, because you could look. Washington could get some pressure on Baker Mayfield. That's kind of a bad matchup. But looking at the game as a whole, can Washington keep up with the Browns here? The Browns can run on them. A good front seven, but we knew the Browns could run on them, and that could open things up for the pass. And that's just the name of the game for Baker, for this Browns offense, is run the ball to open up some daggers. That's exactly what happened, those play-action daggers. But those are just here and there. You don't need Baker to throw for 400 yards to win the game. And this is a prime example of that type of game. And there's games where, are they a come-from-behind team? They're going to have to throw a ton. And maybe they'll have to throw 400 yards in those games. They shouldn't pop up too much. But, you don't really need him to throw for that many yards. Chubb was fantastic. The guy seems, and I was saying that last year, the guy seems quicker and faster than he was at Georgia, plain and simple. And it's rare to see. You see it pop up here and there for running backs. It's rare. That is extremely impressive. Just stick to Chubb and Hunt when you're up, throwing those daggers, those play-action daggers. The Browns started a little slow. I wasn't too worried, but it was it's a team that can't get behind. It's a team that really can't come from behind here. But I knew they can. It really wasn't that. They were down 7-0 first quarter. But again, a good matchup against Washington, so they could come from behind just a little bit too, because they can run on Washington. They're still in the game to be able to run the ball. I think play action is perfect against this pass rush, against the secondary, because the pass rush is their strength. But if you predict play action and it's a run, Nick Chubb or even Kareem Hunt, anybody, me, if I'm back there, I might be gone. So you can't really play for play action. That's the beauty of it. You can't, and if a team fears the run, which you do against the Browns, you can't play for it. So the play action opened things up. It could beat a good pass rush if the quarterback is quick enough. And that I talked about this last week. That's why, Stefanski coming from Kirk Cousins, Vikings, to the Browns. And Cousins is probably known at this point through their careers, or Baker Young career. Cousins is probably known as better. He's definitely more accurate. But why I was saying, and Baker's going to be better, don't get me, definitely going to be better. But why I'm saying I like Baker better for Stefanski than Cousins is because Cousins is good at play action. It's just so much quicker, and that beats the pass rush, which sometimes Cousins couldn't do. It just beats the pass rush, and that's how you beat a front seven like this, so that a little weaker. It's not weak, but weaker on the back end, and you get those plays downfield off the play action. But the run game everything matched up well here. 34 points is impressive. Not super shocking, but it's pretty impressive. Early. They started slow a little early. I'll talk about Washington in a second here, but it's just stuck on the Browns right now. Just a random thing that stood out. Yeah, Baker was about to throw a pick early downfield. Odell went up and just brought the hammer, just smacked it out. Love to see that from Odell, going hard there. That's actually a big-time play that kind of goes unnoticed. Looked like a safety there. Saved the interception. But other than that, yeah, Baker played great. Offensive line held their own, even though they've been kind of a little worn down early in the season. Impressed with the Browns. Impressed. You can still move the ball on this team. Myles Garrett was very impressive. You can throw downfield on this team. Denzel Ward's impressive, but that's kind of the only thing. Those games where they're going to have to play keep up, they're going to have to be the one ahead, make the other team play keep up. That's going to be the difference in those shootout games when they play better offenses. Washington, man, Haskins, you see the highs and then you see the lows. I mean, he turned the ball over too much. He put the ball on the ground. He threw the ball away to other team. But there's highs, there's some bullets, there's some daggers in there, some strikes, I should say, that are impressive. See some things you see at Ohio State, on the move, crazy throws, tight windows. McLaurin looked good again. Gibson minus the fumble. Yeah, they just turned the ball over too much. Here. Haskins, he's got the potential. Got to take care of the ball better, though. He's got to take care of the ball better. Hopefully Chase Young's okay. I know Matt Ioannidis is probably done for the year, so that's unfortunate. That's a hit to D-line. They are pretty deep. They got some talent there, so that I'm not worried about the D-line still. I guess if Chase Young is out too, then no, I'm not worried about the D-line. It's kind of everything else. So that's a tough one for Washington there. Impressed with the Browns so far. Titans and Vikings, a wild game. The Vikings were up 24-12 at one point. That was kind of the point where it felt like the Vikings actually could pull away, surprisingly, against what I think is a pretty good team of the Titans. The Titans, man, though, they're Broncos, Jags, Vikings. Not the best team so far, even though that Week 1 Broncos team is pretty good. That's a pretty good team. And the Vikings, for the offense, look good in this game, but they're barely escaping these 3 games that really aren't the best competition. So starting to get a little, because I'm pretty high on the Titans, so starting to get a little. The defense will get better. They're pretty beat up in the secondary. They desperately need Adoree Jackson back. Clowney and Beasley, they barely had any practice. This year, and I know nobody had. I hate when people use the excuse we didn't have preseason. Well, nobody had preseason, but these guys didn't practice until the week. Vic Beasley practiced like twice in the offseason, or once. I don't know what it was. So these guys get going. Big Jeffrey Simmons, that's a bad man right there. That guy's a beast. Coverage was pretty poor, though. It was pretty poor. It felt like the Vikings. How do I put it? They outplayed the Titans majority of this game, and they still lost. That is bad for the Vikings. There's some good takeaways here. It's really Dalvin Cook's. It's really not a good takeaway. That's Dalvin Cook. You can argue if he's healthy, he is the best running back in all of football. I don't think anybody hits the hole harder than Dalvin Cook. He sees it, hits it with that explosiveness, and we know what he can do after the fact, after the line of scrimmage. We've seen it in this game against a pretty good defense here, and we see him catch the ball as well. That it was impressive that he led the day rushing at 181 yards or so, dominated the day rushing. It's a good thing, but there's no major takeaway there. And then Justin Jefferson. This is a big positive having Justin Jefferson play like this. I went back and watched every catch that he had. It's not surprising this kid can play. This kid's really, really good. They got a bright one here. They're still missing Diggs quite a bit, but Jefferson, they got a good one there. There's no doubt about it. It's kind of already, if he stays healthy, it's already confirmed. So these are kind of positive things, but these guys play to their best ability, and of course it can pop up again. They can do it again. It's not like this is the only time they're going to do it, but they play to their best ability, and they still lost. Like, it's almost a bigger negative. Like I said, Justin Jefferson, it's a positive here, but it's almost like a dagger. I just got stabbed. Like, how do you not win this game, They had some turnovers that were bad. Cousins' pick was pretty bad, but it didn't result in any points. Dalvin Cook's fumble, I think that was like a fluky one. Look how he fall on his own player, C.J. Ham. The ham caused the fumble. When the ground caused the fumble, it doesn't count. The ham caused the fumble. If that's what happened, I don't know. It was bang, bang. It counts, though. So that's tough. Honestly, the difference was field goals. Dan Bailey, who's been on a streak of making field goals, he missed his. Actually got blocked, got a redo, missed it. Unfortunate. At home, you got to make that kick. Gostowski, who's been struggling, next level struggling, goes 6 for 6. The winner was a 55, something like that, yarder. Man, the Vikings can't catch a break. That's clutch by Gostowski. That was the difference. The Vikings defense is pretty terrible. I talked about the interior defense line is probably the worst in football. It's probably the worst in football. Cornerbacks, probably the worst in football. That was the difference there. Titans able to move the ball, but Zimmer's defense clutches up in the red zone, forcing them the field goals, but the Titans still win off field goals. They didn't, Titans, good job of that, moving the ball at times. Tannehill throwing pretty well. It was weird. It felt like the Titans, I talked about the Falcons. This is kind of a thing for the Falcons every week, though. This is kind of the 1 week for the Titans. It felt like the Titans can move the ball when they wanted to. But they kind of shut down a little bit. Maybe not the best game for Arthur Smith, who I really like. Derrick Henry was, he could have ran. Dalvin Cook led the day in the whole NFL by a long shot. Derrick Henry could have, I thought. And I think he was second, if I'm not mistaken, on the day. But he could have had a lot more yards. So I kind of question the play decisions, actually, by the Titans. Harrison Smith had a really good pick on Tannehill at one point. Yeah, there was some turnovers in this game. But yeah, it's a weird one because there's like positive things from the Vikings, but it's just a dagger. Like, you still lost. Defense is a mess. It'll get better. They had some corners hurt. They had Daniil Hunter out. Anthony Barr's out, but he's out for the whole year. It'll get better, and the interior defensive line will get better next year when they get Pierce back because he's a run stopper, and that's exactly what they need. It hurts, though. The Titans, another thing, Titans got a ridiculous amount of pressure. Cousins was pressured on 47. That's about 50. Half of the time he passed the ball, he was pressured. Think about that. Ridiculous. Only sacked 2 times, so I guess credit to Cousins. There was still times where he kind of held the ball a little too long, but I guess in a way that's impressive. The Vikings offensive line is a complete disaster. Not really a surprise. It is a little bit of a surprise because offensive lines that end up being bad usually start the year good. The Vikings offensive line looked fixed early last year, and then it went back to being just terrible. But that's just because offensive lines, the bad ones show up in the stretch of the season, and it's already really bad. So that's bad. So they, besides the pick, I thought Cousins was okay there. That touchdown to Thielen was a pearl of a ball. He did hold the ball a little too long, but I think he was waiting for that. Rudy made another one of those signature catches he has. But yeah, the Titans get here, plain and simple. And this is kind of the positive takeaway for the Titans, even though it's been pretty sloppy for them. This is the positive thing. I thought the Vikings kind of outplayed them actually most of this game. The Titans left some points on the field. It was sloppy. They still won. Why? Because they are just the much better team. So if they put it together, most of the time on Sundays, they're going to be the better team, and if they put it together, they're going to win. They won't have these scares, but we'll see if they can put it together. So that's kind of the positive takeaway there. Another thing that could have changed the game, Holton Hill almost had not only a pick, but a pick six, who had a pretty terrible game, but before the Titans got that field goal, and that could have changed some things a bit as well. That could have been Vikings win right there. So a lot of things here and there that could have went either way. And the Vikings had a chance, which I actually, because how well they were moving the ball, I actually was pretty confident they were going to get down there at least and attempt a field goal. But a complete disaster where Cousins was sacked in a millisecond, was pressured in a millisecond, a bad snap went back. Oh, man. Disaster. Absolute disaster there for the Vikings. 0-3. They play the 0-3 Texans this week. Interesting. Raiders and Patriots, and this is where I talk about this is why I like these games. I like these games, picking these games, because season goes on. You can start playing the matchup game, and I talked about it. I'm hyped on the Raiders. I think it's a pretty good team, but the matchup it's the Patriots. This is an ultimate matchup win for the Patriots, and then exactly what I was talking about showed up on the field in this game. That's why I love playing the matchup. I'm going to say some bad things about the Raiders' Derek Carr right now, but just know he's been playing good. I still like Derek Carr. I like the Raiders. Still hyping the Raiders. They're not going to go win the Super Bowl. I'm not really saying that, but still hyping them. But Derek Carr versus pressure. I mean, the gap is ridiculous. It's kind of bad. It's kind of bad, to be honest. Most quarterbacks, against pressure, they're not going to be as good. But it's not. The good quarterbacks, there's not a huge difference. Derek Carr under pressure is a totally different person. Like, if this guy was on, we just talked about the Vikings. If he was on the Vikings, he'd be very bad, I think. So that's kind of a problem. And I kind of talked about that last week. They've allowed the least amount of pressure up to that point. And then through last week, there was like 2 plays early in the Saints game where they got pressure, and Derek Carr, he got the case of the happy feet. He looked like a mess. So they got to keep him protected. And they didn't. And the Patriots did get pressure. The offensive line of the Raiders didn't play to their best abilities, but it was the matchup. Exactly what I discussed when picking the Patriots. It was the Patriots secondary. Raiders, Carr, those receivers, they were able to beat up on guys like Latimer and Jenkins against the Saints. You play Gilmore, J.C. Jackson. This group of the secondary, they're going to cover man coverage for longer. They're going to stick on their guy for longer than most other teams. So that's Carr's going to need a little more time. Wait for somebody to get open. The offensive line going to have a tougher job. They're going to have to block for a little longer. It's exactly what happened in this game. Exactly. We saw it coming from a mile away. It was a bad matchup for the Raiders. And the Patriots were able to play their game, and that's what we thought on the opposite side too. Sony Michel was able to run. Burkhead was a big factor in this game, both running and receiving. Cam didn't have to really go out his way and do anything spectacular. He just kind of played his game, did his thing, and that was the end of it. It seemed like a pretty simple victory for the Patriots because they knew how to match up against the Raiders. That's just plain and simple what I thought it was. Credit to the Patriots secondary. The pass rush stepped up a bit. They could have, they didn't get a whole bunch of sacks or anything. Carr didn't play like really bad or anything, completion wise, and it wasn't like a bad game. It's just under pressure. Carr is just definitely different. He did fumble the ball, and they were just playing from behind, so they couldn't get their best offense player in Josh Jacobs going or anything. And the Patriots, it's just the matchup. They game plan well for this. It's just there's really not too much else to it there than that. So that's kind of my takeaways. But I still like the Raiders for this year. We'll see, who they match up with and, if they can execute there. I think the key is for them is either, getting open early or keeping Carr protected there. The Niners and the Giants are a complete mess. Half the Niners team was out, including their quarterback, and 36-9. Are you kidding me? And that just goes to show what we knew about the Niners. They have a very, very good roster, one of the best in football, and they have a very good coaching staff on both sides of the ball. That's just it shows how important that is here in a game like this. Mullins, not that big of a drop-off from Garoppolo. Maybe not as big of one as you may think by the names of the guys. So Mullins did his job. He played well. McKinnon was fantastic. I think he's almost kind of a game plan mismatch. I don't think he had tremendous amounts of production in this game, but he kind of gets in the defense's head. Is this guy... he's an excellent receiving back. Is this guy running downfield? Is he catching the ball in the backfield? Are they running the ball? They got Ayuk back. See why he's a first-round prospect. The guy's a beast. You see why Shanahan was in love with him. You see it. He fits this offense. It's just all about the system here. It's all about the coaching. It's all about the talent they still have, even though guys are out. That's the difference here. I think Jeff Wilson got production with the touchdowns-wise. They could have done more. They could have got McKinnon going more and dominated this game even more, really. Pretty ridiculous. But, credit to Mullins. Defense stepped up with guys out. It's just such a well-coached team. Linebacker was great. Fred Warner was great. It's just they're just the better coach team, better team, even when guys hurt. It's just plain and simple. The Giants, I think the first half of the Week 1 Steelers, I was impressed with Daniel Jones, but it's kind of gone back to it's just kind of gone back. Just Daniel Jones. There's still a lot to see. But I always talk about quarterbacks don't change big time. They can improve after first year, after second year, maybe a little bit. Quarterbacks don't change big time. Sometimes hang on the ball a little too long. I do like that he's patient sometimes, but and then just making mistakes. The offensive line sure ain't helping him. No running back, no running game. The running game might not have been a factor anyways because they were getting beat so bad right off the bat. But Barkley, of course, can be involved in the passing game. The Giants just don't have enough on either side of the ball. I mean, the fact that the Niners had plenty more with half the team out, including their quarterback, tells you a lot. The Giants got a ways to go still. I kind of feared this going into this year. But then I started to get, looking at maybe Daniel Jones can improve. Looking at the first half of the Steelers game, but that went away pretty quick for me. It's rough. It's a rough one. Good job of the Niners. I picked the Niners, but I wasn't really back and forth because I never picked the Giants or thought the Giants were winning, but it was tough to pick the Niners this one because how many guys were out and they just destroyed them. So, wow, that's impressive. Bengals Eagles. I talk about the matchup. I picked by the matchup. It's so far up to this point. It's kind of worked out when I've seen glaring matchup differences. It doesn't apply to every game. It doesn't apply to every game. Here's one that you picked. It's a perfect matchup for the Eagles at home, a perfect opportunity for them to win really on both sides of the ball, even though I did expect the Bengals to score more points, but they can really win with both sides of the ball, but mainly on offense. It's a perfect game for Wentz to turn things around, and it just didn't happen. It's actually, even though they tied, it actually feels like a loss for the Eagles because this was a perfect situation for the Eagles to turn it around, win the game, mainly Wentz turn around, win the game, have his day. And he did have those couple of them, those bright moments, especially running the ball. He ran it in for the, to the end zone. He did have those moments, but just not enough and some crucial mistakes. The first interception was tipped. It was tipped, and people are going to make the excuses like this was tipped, whatever. No. Wentz just didn't look right. He doesn't bounce around, hesitating so much. Am I going to throw it? Am I not going to throw it? The footwork looks pretty poor. I don't know what's happening there, and he threw it too low. That interception is 100% on him. It was an absolute mess. Really not the interception itself was the problem. Everything else I explained was the problem. Next interception, it's a bad throw, bad decision, really. It's more of a bad decision than a bad throw. LaShawn Sims actually made a really good play. I mean, I don't know what Wentz is doing. He's fortunate, Jesse Bates, and it was a tough pick, but Jesse Bates, a playmaker. Wentz was very, very fortunate. That would have been the game. That interception, possible interception late there, that would have been the game. So Wentz, this was the game for him, and the Eagles turned around. They did not do it. It's hard to say for the Eagles. At least they tied. It feels like I can say that. I don't know if anybody can agree with me there. I think they can. For the Bengals, I guess at least they tied here. They lose. But for the Eagles, it's like, how the hell do we not win that game if you're an Eagles fan? That's how I think you should feel there. Another thing to add into that, how many times they sacked Burrow? Is it 8 times? Brandon Graham got 2. Barnett got 2. Good to see him going. I'm trying to remember. I think Jalen Mills was getting going, getting after Burrow. Good blitz calls. Josh Sweat, I was very high on him at Florida State because he has the traits, he has the pass rush ability. Just the injury was the only concern, and I think he's been fantastic. I like Josh Sweat, so I'm glad about that one because I was really the only one that calling that Josh Sweat had potentially first round talent, but we just knew he wasn't going that early because of his injuries. So yeah, they got ridiculous. He got 8 sacks. You made this quarterback not be able to play. He wasn't able to play his game, a good quarterback, Joe Burrow, because of what you did to him, and you lost the game. And your quarterback had much more time, better opportunities, and couldn't get it done. So I'm still on I thought this was the week where we were going to be, kind of getting back. Okay, here comes Wentz. Here he goes. This was the opportunity. And it was pretty disappointing. Even their touchdown pass they had, it was just a broken coverage. Ward was wide open. But the receiver unit ends up being beat up again. Jeffrey, Rager, now Deshaun Jackson. So I think we're going to go back. Yeah, that's unfortunate. Definitely could help Wentz a little more. But really no excuses here. And they just keep drafting guys that are getting beat up. And maybe you can blame the training staff a little bit. I don't know. But yeah, game ends up going to overtime. I'm trying to think if I'm missing anything in here. Good to see T. Higgins getting back on the board. Just the Bengals just got to fix the offensive line. It's a team of the future. Fix the offensive line. Defense, creds to the defense. They weren't supposed to play this well. They played that well. Missing some guys as well, too. So, get Trey Waynes back, get Geno Atkins back, get the young linebackers developed, add some pass rush, offense, add the offensive line. Easier said than done. It's going to take some time, but team of the future. At least you can identify things. Eagles, it's kind of tough to identify what's going on. Bengals, you can identify what we need to fix. Team of the future. So something still to be excited about. But overtime, just back and forth. The offenses can't move the ball, and this is supposed to be a shootout game. Very disappointing. Bengals got a legitimate excuse, I guess, with the offensive line, but then it comes down to interesting because the Eagles were going to attempt a field goal to win the game a very doable, very makeable field goal for Elliott there. And Pryor gets the false start, extremely unacceptable in a situation like this. But in a way, I was thinking like after the fact, this actually, it's weird. It actually could have hurt the Bengals, hurt their chances maybe. Because it wasn't a guaranteed make. Obviously, if you would have made it, it's just kind of we're playing scenarios here. If you would have made it, Eagles win. That sucks for the Bengals, but the guy made the kick. They got in field goal position to make that kick. Okay. But if he attempts that kick, misses it, the Bengals actually have a play or two to get in to get them in a position to have a chance to win the game, kick the field goal. Would they have done that? We don't know for sure. There's a lot of scenarios here. Because the false start, it just automatically ended in a tie. Nobody had a shot there. So that was unfortunate. Unacceptable false start. It was Jason Peters go down now too. So the Eagles offense line even more of a mess. So yeah, they're in the boat with the Bengals, I suppose. But Eagles got 8 sacks. Their quarterback was affected way more. It just feels like a loss, even though it's not. It feels like a loss for the Eagles, so they got to figure it out fast. It is good, though, that they're only 1 game back of the division, but the way teams are playing and who they're playing and the circumstances, it just feels like the Cowboys are just by far the best team in this division. They're playing better teams. Their offensive line's beat up, and they're going to get those guys back, of course. They're playing really good teams. They're putting up fights with those teams. So I'm not really too worried about the Cowboys, honestly. Next, Steelers Texans. Another interesting one because the Texans got up right off the bat 14-3. They're getting the ball out quick. Looks like a good game plan because why? Here's a matchup issue. This is why I had to pick the Steelers, is because they have the best pass rush in football at this point. They might have it in general. The Texans' offensive line has been a complete disaster. Getting after Watson, making him not be able to play his game, has been the difference. The matchup lines up. So the Steelers are going to win this game is what I'm thinking based off that. It'll probably be close because the Texans are a pretty good team. They're much better than the record shows. But that's kind of my thoughts. But the Texans do a great job of taking that away. I've talked about some time. Steelers probably have the best defense in football right now. The pass rush, the front seven is elite. It's great. Secondary is good. It's just not as good as it may seem sometimes because they do get a lot of help from the front seven. You can throw on these guys if you get by the front seven. These guys can be beat. I think by far Mike Hilton has been easily the best guy in the secondary so far. He's actually been lights out. But yeah, they're going quick, and then they're releasing that dagger, trying to surprise him, and Will Fuller's beating them in coverage, Randall Cobb's beating them in coverage. They're up 14-3, and this is where you absolutely credit the Steelers, Mike Tomlin, the Steelers defense, and why they're the best in football right now. The Texans are up 14-3. So what are they going to do? What do they want to do? This is a perfect situation. You want to be able to run the ball more, run the clock, get those daggers out, keep going. That kind of keeps the Steelers on their toes. What are they going to do? And they're going to run the clock at the same time. We're down 14-3. Perfect situation with the Texans. Steelers stop the run at an extremely elite level. David Johnson going nowhere. Reminds me of week 1 a little bit against the Giants. Daniel Jones is actually doing pretty well against the Steelers, moving the ball. Steelers not only eliminate Saquon Barkley, they dominate Saquon Barkley in this running game in that offensive line. And that kind of just forces the Giants in this scenario, the Texans, back into the game. The Steelers get them right where they wanted to. We want them to throw the ball. We want them to know defense is a guessing game. When we know they're throwing the ball, we can sack these guys. Running game, we shut it down. It's not working. We're getting after the quarterback. Bud Dupree, I don't know if I'm more impressed with a defender more than Bud Dupree. He's been ridiculous. They're getting after him. Back to the normal game. Easy comeback. That is the name of the game. That was this game. That was this game. Stopping the run. It'll go unnoticed. They stopped the run to win this game, the Steelers. That's what it was. And what will be noticed is true. It's true. They got after Deshaun Watson. That probably be noticed mainly is why they won the game. But stopping the run first, eliminating, taking something away, making them one-dimensional, doing what you do best then, going against what they're weak at, their offensive line. That's it. That is it, ladies and gentlemen. And they took advantage on offense. Big Ben was good. Seeing him run, the toughness is still there. I mean, coming back from that surgery, running like that, he's not running too fast, but running, just a smart guy, and a tough dude. You got to respect it. And yeah, they were making plays. Deontay Johnson's been fantastic. For Ebron, that throw to Ebron, great grab, great throw, great grab. And the Texans just can't. It just felt like they had to dig themselves out of a hole when they were up. And that is a problem for them. that's credit to the Steelers as well for the reasons we explained, like how they did that. Again, Mike Hilton staying out for the secondary. It's mainly that front seven. No, Bud Dupree, T.J. Watt. Those guys are balling out there. Those guys, to say the least, those guys are balling. Am I missing something? Yeah, that last interception by Watson was pretty bad. He hasn't had the help really in terms of the offensive line. I'm okay with the receivers. Yeah, DeAndre Hopkins ain't out there, but it's not terrible. I got some guys that can play, but he still can't make those throws. But I still believe in Deshaun Watson. Vikings 0-3, Texans 0-3, two teams that are, I think the idea of them are much, much better than 0-3, probably at this point, because the Vikings are actually playing bad ball. The Texans really, I don't know if they're, at times they are, but two teams that are surprisingly 0-3 is what I'm getting at. Somebody's got to win, unless it ends up like the Bengals and the Eagles. But yeah, credit to the Steelers on that one, that comeback. Not a crazy comeback, but yeah, you get my point. Jets and the Colts, let's just not focus on this one too much here. We want to move on, but dominating win for the Indianapolis Colts, another stellar performance for their defense. What I actually like here, what impressed me, is that Rivers can hold himself back a little bit. No fumbles from Taylor too, so no turnovers is what I'm getting at. They can control themselves right now. Take care of the ball. They can manage the game. They manage the game. Those guys manage the game. They didn't do anything spectacular because they didn't need to. They managed the game. Defense did their part. A lot of it was the Jets kind of gifting them a little bit, but they put themselves in the right position. Defense played amazing 2 weeks in a row. So yeah, that's really it for the Colts. They did their part there, the offense. I'm glad that Rivers to kind of calm himself down, be a game manager, because he hasn't been able to do that in the past. And I think that's credit to Frank Reich kind of taking a little more control over Phillip Rivers than the Chargers. The Chargers they couldn't control him really. So credit to Frank Reich there. Offensive line punished this D-line that's supposed to be good. The Jets D-line is supposed to be good. They punished them, absolutely. So credit there. I don't really have too much there on the for this game really. Xavier Rhodes once was elite corner a few years ago. All right, I got to slow my roll here. Everyone's got to slow their roll here. I don't want to give anybody's hopes up, but I look at when Rhodes was elite, when he was maybe the best corner in football. Why was he the best? I mean, he's a smart player, but the physicality combined with the athletic ability was out of this world. It was rare as can be. Probably the strongest corner, but he was also a 4-4 guy, and he can attack the ball. That's what Xavier Rhodes was when he was elite, when he was my favorite corner in football, when he was the best corner in football. The last 2 years, and I talked about this during the time too, 2 years ago when he was when he first started going on the slide. He was in and out of a bunch of games like crazy. Every single game, I think he went down and came out, went back in. He missed a chunk of games, some big games. He was hurt. And that year, I'm saying he looked slow as molasses. He was slow, didn't look right, couldn't attack the ball because you need some burst to be able to attack the ball. Going into next year, I'm like, okay, he's got to be healthier this year. He'll pick it up. But he just still looked that slow. And, you question it. Is he just washed? Did the injuries affect him for good? Is he still hurt? It was kind of in the back of my mind. Go to this game. He's healthy. You go to this game against the Colts, the way he's been playing this, against the Jets, the way he's been playing this year. I mean, attacking the ball. I mean, he looks fast again. He looks quick and fast. The pick six, all the way to the end zone, run down the field. The other pick in the red zone was more impressive because he left where he came from, attacked the ball with speed, and took that ball. I don't want to get anybody too excited here, but this guy is way, way faster. Looks more like he did when he was elite in the last 2 years. It is night and day. Can that keep up? I notice I'm not a big Pro Football Focus guy. I appreciate what they do there. It's a lot of good work. But and I like what they do for sure. I don't always agree with it though, is my point. But Rhodes is their number one corner, and so far at this early stage, that's pretty impressive. So Jets. I've never been a Darnold guy. You guys know that. I wasn't high on him at USC. Why? Because he simply wasn't good at USC. He turned the ball over at bad times. He missed throws at bad times. You have the big playability here and there. He played for the big USC. That's really all he had going for him. And I guess you see how young he is. I think that hypnotized people a little too much. And it was the most mind-blowing thing pre-draft process ever. Everybody had Darnold, like top tier. And I just did not. I had him nowhere. If you guys remember, I had him nowhere near. I wasn't taking him anywhere near the first half of the first round. And And again, quarterbacks don't change. They can improve slightly. They're not going to all of a sudden add traits, or these bad things really aren't going to go away. You can become a little more accurate. You can eliminate the turnovers a little bit. And people use the excuse that he doesn't really have the help. He doesn't have the help. The help can make him a little better. Is it going to change him? This is where it's mind-blowing. He's not going to just all of a sudden stop throwing the ball to the wrong team and just making these poor throws. Some guys will make bigger plays and rack up more yards for him. It'll become a little easier. Nothing will change. This guy, I'm pretty much done. I've kind of been done with him since USC, really. I never really doubted his future, but enough with the excuses here. He's throwing the ball to the wrong team. He can't get things going. Good quarterbacks just find ways either way, and he's just not doing it. Gase certainly isn't helping him either. He's not doing it. So, disaster in New York. We already kind of knew that, though. Panthers, Chargers, a good one for the Panthers. So we see I think the main thing here is the difference from, well, first off, right off the bat, the Panthers had 0 sacks through 2 weeks. They got 2 sacks in this game. Brian Burns and Marquise Hayes, who I actually kind of thought was a bit of a sleeper of Ole Miss a few years ago, and he never really got the opportunity. So good to see him get the opportunity here. I think he fits them a little more now. Maybe that's why. Not a guy that's going to be anything special, but just a sleeper guy that deserved more of a shot. He got on the board. So they got 2 sacks in one game, 2 more than they had all year through only 2 games, but that's good. But big difference between last week and this week. They were able to move the ball pretty well last week. They still were this week, but they're able to move the ball pretty well. Pretty explosive plays, but then they had kind of like the turn. It was surprising because they had the turnover. Like Teddy is, I've talked about, more of a premium game manager. Like he's going to make some big plays, not as much as your other good quarterbacks. And they won't have those big explosive plays, but he's not going to turn the ball over. But last week showed us different. He's got the explosive plays, turned the ball over a little bit. This week, it's more of that premium game manager, just being accurate, completing the passes, getting the ball downfield, and it worked out yesterday, in this week, in this game. The thing is, will that work every week? With teams because their defense, you got to have a pretty good defense to kind of make that work. It played good in this game. Maybe it'll get better, but it's not really a good defense, and they'll go against better offenses. So will that work going forward? But a good game from Teddy. Robbie Anderson seems to be his guy. He's doing more than expected so far, staying healthy, so that's good. Mike Davis stepped up when he needed to. No McCaffrey, they still get the job done. Pretty interesting. I'm gonna credit the offensive line here. This offensive line is supposed to be one of below average, for sure, below average where it's supposed to be. They did a pretty good job there. They did a pretty good job against a pretty good defense, pretty good pass rush. So credit to the offensive line. Credit to the defense for stepping up. Dante Jackson making another play. He can take it the distance. He didn't take it all the way the distance, but he can move after that as well. So they stood out in multiple areas there. That's a big time win. The Chargers don't have enough offensively. We know they have a good defense. Another thing for the Panthers is turn some of those field goals into touchdowns, and you're in business against the better offensive team. So that's something they can work on. Missing McCaffrey kind of hurts them in that aspect. Only Herbert's second game. It's just nothing. It's again same kind of like last week. It's just Herbert. It's nothing really changes too much with quarterbacks. He will have those wild plays. He had 300 something yards. That's a pretty good number. People will be wowed by that. He has that laser arm that kind of wows you. He can move around. He'll try to run somebody over here and there. You love to see that. But it's kind of the same things, same things that I think are in his head. Just insisting on throwing a ball at a spot. Like he's all of a sudden, he's not really at times it feels like a one-read guy. He kind of does quite a bit, but when he throws like the picks, like he kind of scans the field a little bit, and he insists on the one guy. Like he wants to be the hero at times, but not a whole bunch. Just at times, and it kind of costs him at those times. And just throwing it directly to the defense. He doesn't see coverage on the back end, behind the target. That's where they'll get him in the college level too. And kind of jumping routes, but it's you should be able to see that, and then not getting the ball earlier, kind of just waiting, being too patient at times. I think it's a problem. It's the same problems at Oregon, and I think some of these problems are fixable. It's a matter of just getting the ball out earlier, reading the field earlier. But it's one of those things easier said than done. Can they change this from him? Can they change it? It is very early to be able to make that judgment. But some of the similar problems there. And they really, at the end of the day, you have that many. You should be able to move the ball a little better. You should be able to move the ball, put the ball in the end zone a little better. there. They got Keenan Allen going really good. You like to see that. I thought this would be a big Josh Kelly game, but I think being down from so much created that to not be the case. It was a game we kind of expected them to be up. So I think it's pretty key for the Chargers to be up in games. They're not really a play from behind team. The defense can only do so much. They get pressure. You should have got more and then more sacks against a team like the Panthers. Joey Bosa is a guy that obviously a really good pass rusher. He's been for some time, but it's a guy that I've kind of, when you throw his name around the top tier guys, he's really not in that category, but close to that. Even when you throw it there, kind of hesitate. He's got the technique, he's got the strength where he just beats guys off the line with that. But the lack, and you see the number of pressures he gets, and then you see the number of sacks, and it's almost at the point, I talked about this a little last week, it's almost at the point where it's not good. Like, having a bunch of pressure is a good thing, but he just can't finish the plays. I think it's because the lack of, quickness and speed. I guess the lack of it. I guess he has a pretty good amount of athleticism for his size, how big of a guy he is, but the lack of that, and it can't make that extra boost to the quarterback. I think that's almost a problem here. And you see, though, that a game that you thought the defense would be more of a factor, a game that you thought the pass rush would be more of a factor, wasn't so much in a game where Melvin Ingram was out. And this is another example of what I've been talking about for so many years, that Melvin Ingram makes the team around him better. I've been talking about this for years and why Melvin Ingram has been one of my favorite defensive players in all of football for some time. Exactly the reason. And people started to realize it finally last year when he was out. The difference shows up again here. Those were the differences there between the Chargers and the Panthers. Buccaneers, Broncos. I thought this was a lock of the week. There were some people talking about this was a toss-up. Seemed like experts saying that they may go with the Broncos. It was mind-blowing to me. It kind of went exactly to plan. The Broncos are missing a lot of guys. They're really, really hurt, and that's really the difference in this game. But you look at it, obviously the Buccaneers are going to outplay the Broncos on offense, but the Broncos got their defense going for them. Can they win this game with defense? But the Buccaneers can match that defense. It's a very underrated, a very, very good defense. Guys, I thought Mike Edwards was kind of all over the place in this game. You kind of noticed him. That's kind of supposed to be the spot where they can get a little better, perhaps, but he's pretty good moving around a bit, coming up in the box. Him and Winfield, they can go back and forth a little bit. Winfield, definitely more to his game, definitely the better player. Shaq Barrett, we had the hot take video, and somebody said that Shaq Barrett can get 3 sacks against his against his former team here. He got 2, so he had that big game, so pretty close there. He had that big-time game against his former team. Monster game for him. Just a bunch of guys that fly around the field and make plays for the Buccaneers defense. Tom Brady looked a little better. I think he's going to get better as the season goes on. Getting used to his team here. Leonard Fournette, people started to get hyped him a little bit last week, but kind of went cold again this week. It's not really a big deal, but anybody that started in fantasy, I kept him on my bench this week. I was a little worried about this week for him, but anybody started fantasy, probably not too happy. Scotty Miller stood out. That one contested, was it Justin Simmons? It was Justin Simmons' contested catch was ridiculous by Scotty Miller. That actually could have been PI too. You see the lack of corners for the Broncos. They're pretty beat up there. Justin Simmons got to go out and press Mike. Too much responsibility for a single high free safety, almost like one of the better center field type safeties in football. And they're asking him to go out and press and play a lot of man, especially on Mike Evans. You just can't. It's just, you're expecting too much from the guy who's a good football player. So just not enough from Jeff Driscoll. All of his line doesn't help him, but he definitely holds the ball a little too much, steps up into sacks. Just not enough for the Broncos, but it's like understandable. Some teams, they just don't have enough, and it's kind of alarming because what are we going to do about it? The Broncos, it's not enough because they are one of the most beat-up teams in football. It's just unfortunate. So not really too many takeaways from that game. Lions Cardinals, this is another thing. I'm happy with this week because I think a lot of things that I've said in the past, in the offseason, and even going into this week kind of happened. I picked the Cardinals, so I was wrong on that. I picked the Cardinals to win the game. But what I mean by that is the Cardinals, I talked about in the offseason. The Cardinals, they very well can make the playoffs. They've looked good as a whole so far this year. But the reason I just kept them, I knew they were a playoff contender. I like their schedule. I like Kyler Murray's going to light it up this year. I like their pieces. They get better with DeAndre Hopkins. They get better on defense. They get better with the second year with Kyler Murray with the coaching staff. Yeah. But the reason I had them just outside the playoffs is because they're still very, very young. I like Kyler Murray a lot. He's going to light up the stat sheet, like I said, this year. But he's still going to have those games. Like I've talked about, they're going to have those hiccups. I think I mentioned several times. And it doesn't really matter who they play. And that's what we talked about in the offseason. And that popped up in this game. It's exactly what it was. Kyler Murray, like, in a way, had a pretty darn good game, running a bit. Maybe they can design some more runs for him because it's just unstoppable. He stops on a dime. He can shift left. The elite quickness. How do you stop that? DeAndre Hopkins was lights out. Kenyon Drake. I'm going to come back to Kenyon Drake in a second here, but in the running game. But yeah, Kyler Murray, they had the explosive plays. They were dishing the ball. He had a pretty good game, but really, I don't know if he did because he was lucky not to have more interceptions. He had 3 interceptions. It's good to see Jeff Okudah get on the board. Tracy Walker felt like he was all over the field. A guy that's kind of, can do it all. Come up, play back. He was all over the field. That stood out to me. But at the same time, it's not a team that's going to get a ton of pressure on you. So it's not really pressure affecting Murray. It's kind of like this is just going to happen. It's just going to happen for the young guys. For the most part, he'll be good. This will pop up, though, but those crucial mistakes end up being the difference in this game. Because imagine if you just knock off maybe even 1, or let's say 2 of those turnovers that he hasn't really been doing this year. Some other turnovers I think were a little bit unlucky in the past couple weeks. But that was the difference here for them. Going back to the running game, the running game, it's not a team. First off, we're not in a league, an era where teams run the ball 30 times or really even around there. And the Cardinals certainly really aren't that team. And I do think that's a problem because it's a tough offensive game plan because it's urgent. It's very urgent, high tempo, crazy passing game. It's a college-style offense. These defenses aren't really used to it. It's tough to game plan for. You got a very fast quarterback that can run, can air it out downfield, very strong arm. You got one of the best receivers in football. It's very tough, and that's the positive thing. But the big negative is kind of sticking to that, being stubborn to go away from that. And we blame a little bit Murray for throwing those interceptions and not taking care of the ball there. But I'm going to put some on Kingsbury here in being a little stubborn because it felt like the Lions were majority of the time, nobody really had full control of this game, but it felt like, it's tough to say, but it felt like the Cardinals were kind of in a way playing keep up with them, not too much. It was very close, back and forth the whole time. But they weren't like playing big time keep up where you couldn't run the ball. Kenyon Drake was dominating this game, and you can run the Lions, inside, outside. So I fault Kingsbury for getting too stubborn, sticking to his game too much. Running is like, running the ball like this to your running back that, even though it's one of those tenders, a tag that you're even though it's still a lot of money. You like him a lot. He worked a lot last year. He works against the Niners. You beat the Niners, I think, in a big way because of Kenyon Drake. That is a problem for them, even if he's not getting a crazy amount of production. But anyways, it should not be hard for you to step off your type of games a little bit. Running game should always be part of the game. So I'm actually, the more I talk about it, the more I'm convincing myself that should be more at fault than than Kyler Murray turned the ball over. Really. So that's where I stand there. Still a good team. Still, I'm impressed with the Cardinals. Still an explosive offense, much improved defense, and get some pressure. It's good to see Hassan Reddick, who I graded somewhat high as a pass rusher, and the Cardinals turned him into an inside linebacker. I said it was stupid before he even played a snap there. I said it was stupid all along, and they finally move him back outside. He looks pretty decent. Hopefully he's not ruined for good. I don't think he is, so I'm glad to see that. So something that, I've been preaching for some time. So I'm not really too worried about the Cardinals, but these games will pop up. Like I talked about in the offseason, why I just had them outside the playoffs. But right now, I could be maybe leaning them just inside because teams like the Eagles, the Vikings, very disappointing. But, teams like the Bears being better. But we're too far from there. But, those games popping up, it doesn't really matter on the competition. Doesn't matter if it's the Lions. Doesn't matter if it's the Jets. Doesn't matter if it's I would hope they handle the Jets. Doesn't matter if it's the Ravens. Those things will either happen or they won't. It's just part of kind of the growing pains. Lions, talked about earlier in this video, talking about the Falcons. I'm comparing the Lions and the Falcons, and not just because they both let a comeback happen against the Chicago Bears. But, well, I guess that kind of goes into it, why it happened. But it feels like a team that at times, a lot of the times, can move the ball when they just choose to. And it's unfortunate that they're not scoring more points than this. It's odd. I guess they get a little conservative at times, but they do throw the shots out there. And we'll talk about that last drive with that shot to Marvin Hall that got called back. But, yeah, it feels like, and it's weird not seeing DeAndre Swift get any carries, but Adrian Peterson did play well. Kenny Golladay had that, and Kenny Golladay is one of my sleepers in the draft at NIU. I think I was higher on Kenny Golladay than anybody, but I guess the Lions are right there with me. But why he is so good and why he is one of the better receivers in all of football, good to have him back there. You see that catch where he goes up and gets it, and you almost expect him to make that catch, even though it's kind of tough. So it's nothing ridiculous. But how many receivers can do that? Be that contested guy that go up and catch the ball, have the length, but can be kind of that all around, all across the field. You almost give this guy a screen pass. He can run, he can run, juke, make people miss, run him over even at times, can break the tackles. How many guys have that total package? There's a lot of guys that have all of it, but how many guys have all of it and have all of it at the top tier? Love me some Kenny Golladay. It's really good that he's back. He's one of the best and growing receivers in the NFL. So, yeah, I'm sure Stafford's happy to have him back. But, yeah, defense stepped up, getting those turnovers. I mentioned some guys that really stood out. I think Jamie Collins stood out as well. I don't know if I mentioned him, but Tracy Walker felt like he was all over the field just to me. I didn't see every snap of this game. That's what I gather. But, yeah, that last drive, it felt weird. That last drive to win the game, to kick the field goal felt weird because they were still running the ball. They were playing pretty conservative. They were playing like their main focus was running the clock. Either their main focus is running the clock or they were just very, very convinced, too confident, I'd say, that they are going to run the clock and win on a field goal. It ended up being right. So say what you want. It ended up being right, but they were a little too confident there. To me, the priority should not have been run the clock. It worked out. Again, it worked out, but that could backfire. If you go 3 and out, very easily could go 3 and out because of that. It's bad. It is bad. Coach's got to be fired on the spot if they end up losing because of that. And it very well was doable. It could have happened. But it was weird in a way because they had that shot to Marvin Hall. It's like they want to run the clock. They're focused on that. They're too confident, but shot to Marvin Hall, which was a big-time play called back. Great throw, great catch. Was that designed? Was that Stafford choice? I don't know. Yeah, it was just odd. It was kind of odd. So that could have backfired, but they execute. They get the job done. I guess they ended up as a whole mixed in the passes runs, but it felt like they came out they came out of it just we're gonna run the clock here, folks. And I don't know about that one. It worked out. But yeah, good game though. Good game. I expected more scoring in this game though, and I think both teams were capable. Lions felt like when they wanted to, they could have pushed the ball more. I think Kenny Drake should have been more involved there for the Cardinals. Cowboys, Seahawks, an absolute shootout as expected. I predicted 37-31. I was 1 point off here, unfortunately, with the Seahawks there with their points. But yeah, it's concerning how two good teams. Cowboys record won't show it. Seahawks record won't show how concerning something is about their team. But they're still a very good team. They're a very good contender there. You've seen Jamal Adams off the field at one point there too. But the defense is very concerning at times, and it's that what we talked about all offseason. It's that edge rush. They're lacking it. And that's causing very tough play for the corners, and that's really why I say I think they got solid corners. I think they got guys who can play. Yeah, they can be better. They have their bad moments at times, but that's why I say pass rush is way more important than cornerbacks. There's some people that will draft cornerbacks really high over pass rush. It's because pass rush can make corners' jobs way easier, and it doesn't really matter when you have decent corners when you have no pass rush. So that's a problem. One thing, which it was, at the end of the day, it looks like it's just a shootout. The better offense won in today's game, on the day. That's the storyline. Russell Wilson balled out. They scored more points. Minus DK Metcalf's big mistake there, which was ridiculous. He ended up showing up too. He's a big time player. Tyler Lockett had a big day. Chris Carson ran pretty well. until getting hurt. And at the end of the day, they won the shootout. The offense, the two offenses collide. The better offense wins. The better quarterback wins. Perhaps that's what it was. I picked the Seahawks in a kind of an even matchup with the offenses for the most part. And I remember I said, because I think their defense makes those extra plays. Two not so good defenses. I think this one, that's the difference for me. This one makes the extra plays. I think that was spot on. They turned the ball over. They turned the ball over on Dak, even though the defense struggled. But a big one here, this is the big one, is, and I have, even though the defense has struggled, I have complimented the run defense, and mainly the interior defensive line, with Poona Ford, Jaron Reed, guys like that. And that they shut down Zeke in the running game and him trying to get going in the passing game at times there in crucial moments. That was a key. They shut down Zeke Elliott in the running game there. That was a major key. So even though the defense is a problem, I guess you can credit them, and that was kind of the difference. Dak's got to take care of the ball a little better. They need to get some of the offensive line healthy and in back. I think they'll be better. Again, I predicted the Cowboys to be very good this year. I'm not going away from that. When I predicted that, I also said they can start off a little slow, tough schedule, new coach, some changes. And on top of that, they have injuries. So I'm confident about the Cowboys down the stretch still. They played some good teams here. Defense is kind of a problem. Both defenses really not enough. Really not enough. They had a shot on that last drive. They moved the ball. I don't know what they make it really to make of that. The Seahawks were getting pressure actually at that point. That was, a team that's really lacking getting pressure. Why did they make the stop? It's because they were all of a sudden getting pressure. So Alton Robinson, rookie from Syracuse, I like that pick. He looked like he was going to be a future first rounder a couple years ago. So it's good to see him get going there. Cedric Wilson had a pretty good game for the Cowboys. I don't know why KJ Wright was covering him at that one point, but that's kind of a problem because the Cooper went down. We see other guys step up. That's my takeaways. I guess the Cowboys had a shot in this one, and maybe the Seahawks, they got to be a little pissed at DK because maybe they would put the game away a little earlier if that didn't happen. So that's just a mistake you can't let happen. But I don't think it's going to happen ever again. And then the last one here. Packers and the Saints. Packers take care of business 37-30. Impressed with the offenses, mainly the Packers, obviously, but not so impressed with the defenses. Some very poor in different ways. The Packers, I thought the Saints could have ran the ball to Kamara a little more. It's odd that they just don't run him the ball. He's more of a receiver, really. That's why it's interesting. He is one of the better backs in football, but it's interesting debating that because he's almost not used as a running back, that much, anymore. So interesting, but I think they should. I think he's very capable. So that was interesting to me. Other side, I knew this was going to be a battle of the running backs. I knew Kamara would be a problem for the Packers. I still picked the Packers. Aaron Jones was great for them. I don't mind Jamal Williams. It's just maybe a little too much. Sometimes they should have Aaron Jones in there. But Rodgers was fantastic once again. Alan Lazard was great, so maybe we see why they didn't, even though I still think it's kind of a need, see why they trust their guys here. Even with Devontae Adams out, they put up 37 points. Guys like Lazard step up. Guys step up there. So that's good. It makes it a little easier when you got a guy like Aaron Rodgers. Credit to the Packers offensive line. Rodgers needs time to make these plays. I mean, he can get the ball out quick and make plays that way. We've seen that at times. Some beautifully designed ball, plays, just snap, throw, perfect ball. So he can do that. But credit to the offensive line that's been beat up this year. Some changes. No Brian Bulaga. Credit to the coaching staff for that. Getting these guys ready and well coached too. Maybe they just know how to find them. Perhaps that too. A mixture of the things. But that offense. Really impressive. Really getting going. I love the deep shots. There. And the Saints, I don't love that. They don't take any deep shots. That's kind of the difference here. And that's kind of what I was saying the difference was going to be before the game. Why I picked the Packers. Love those deep shots. They don't work, but they're kind of close to working, and some teams shy away like idiots. Not Rodgers and the Packers. They keep going. The Rodgers, the snap count, the fake, the cadence, the fakes on the defense there. Really, it works. It works too much, and no crowd. It definitely works a little more. So that was a factor. But the Saints' pass rush is non-existing right now. I think Cam Jordan is, you can't really expect him to be the same, or definitely can't expect him to be better as the years pass, because he is a veteran guy. But he's still very good. But there's just too much on him to kind of carry the load there. Demario Davis, they got to blitz him to make an impact, and he made an impact there. He's a very good player. A Saints team that once was thought of very complete isn't looking, I'm not saying it's not, but it's not looking very complete right now because 1 to 2 guys, majority of the time, other guys will make plays here and there, but 1 to 2 guys or 2 guys will say it's up to them to make that big play, and that's wrong there. So they're far from a complete team, which some people were saying right now. Offensively, with Michael Thomas, they're definitely much better. They're definitely a team, a much better team. There, and Kamara was lights out for them. Poor tackling on the Packers' part. Yeah, so the difference is in defense. The Saints struggled to cover deep. They struggle to stick on their man. Marshawn Lattimore has been struggling. He can't stick on Allen Lazard, who he should be double the speed of. And they kind of got to switch. Last week he was on Bryan Edwards. It's not even the toughest task out there. So I don't know, something up with him. It's really not surprising to me. I really never thought Lattimore was that great. Early in years, he normally plays okay, but not really this year. Week 1 he was okay, but just not enough from the Saints defense. 2 guys carrying, they're getting beat in the secondary. Not enough pass rush right now. The Packers defense, why there's very poor tackling, just very, very poor. No Kenny Clark, opens things up in the run game. There's some pretty big holes. The next level of guys, it's up to them. They can't make the tackles. Christian Kirksey went down, but that Kamara touchdown was Big 12, maybe worse style tackling, and it's unacceptable. It could have been a no-gain play behind the line of scrimmage, maybe negative on the screen pass, but just all it took, this credit to Kamara. That guy's an absolute beast. That was high in Kamara out of Tennessee, for a reason. The guy's an absolute stud. But guys like Jair Alexander, who I like, made some big plays. First drive really stood out. Leaving his coverage to come up, attack the ball, forcing a 3 and out. I noticed little things like that. So I do love Alexander. I loved him the first time I seen him step on the field at Louisville, but was very disappointed in him. It's only one play, but just little things stand out. Very disappointed in him because I don't expect that from him. I expect him from other guys, but just lunging, like diving at Kamara without wrapping up. I just don't expect that from him. I would almost prefer Amos kind of gets put on Kamara a little more. Some of these linebackers weren't cutting it. But the Saints were just afraid to throw deep. That was a problem I was talking about last week. It's kind of been what I've been talking about, why they've been stopped short in the playoffs. They're going to figure it out, though. They're going to get going. But my point is they were hesitant to throw deep. Packers should have known that. Therefore, they should have been focused on more of Kamara. Why was he wide open? Therefore, they should have been running more press man, which they were running more man in the second half. Glad they did that. But they weren't physical enough at the line. Alexander was fine in that regard, being physical and not giving up too much cushion. Kevin King, on the other hand, was really not. So, yeah, there's some things to work on defensively for the Packers. Zadarius Smith, the game plan is around him, which I kind of talked about. He played an elite football season last year. Game plan is around him, so you see how the defense changes. He did a lot more. We're starting to see he did a lot more than people thought last year. He was that good, this year. And he still made the big play in this one, forcing that Taysom Hill fumble. Sean Payton maybe not happy with himself there on that one. That stuff's kind of getting too obvious. I think there was another play. It was like a screen to Hill. Just too obvious. But, yeah, I want to see Brees get the ball downfield more, and it's coming to the question that can he? Because, you had who was Harris it was. Maybe if it was Michael Thomas, he throws the ball, but it was, and Collinsworth pointed it out, that Harris was open for a touchdown. And then you kind of just wonder, did Brees just not see him, which is one thing. It's kind of a problem still. But you see the camera, then the replay. Brees saw him. He saw him, and he just checked down to Kamara then. That's, where's his confidence level at? He wins with his knowledge, though. Still a good quarterback because of that. And I'm sure they'll figure it out at some point, need Michael Thomas back. But some things I was saying before this game that I was a little concerned about kind of stood out again. But offense really wasn't the problem. There was some plays they left in the field. So they could have done a little more. The fact that one team's got these explosive plays downfield and you have none of them, and you're still in this game, is actually, in a way, it's, if you can figure that out, then you're going to win a game like this, perhaps. So in a way, it's a positive. But you kind of just need more. There were some questionable calls in this game, and it was from one drive. There was a pass interference on Marcus Williams. I strongly disagree with it because the Saints were finally getting great pressure as the ball was being snapped there, and Rodgers knew it. He threw the ball away and got rewarded for a throwaway. It wasn't a catchable ball. So that's one that I will pound the table and say, no, that should not have been called. The next one was on the same drive. It was on Malcolm Jenkins, or it wasn't. It was Lewis on that play who kind of pushed off a bit. that one, it probably looks like a call. It's not one that I'm saying it's mad. It's for sure a call because I think Jenkins was rather selling it. He didn't get his head around. I think that's the key. If he got his head around, probably would have called it. So you don't really want to reward defense for making bad decisions. Getting beat, but he was in somewhat of a position to make the play. He just didn't. So that. And he even could have, even after the push-off. So that probably what hurt him. So that one I'm not going to complain about too much, even though it was questionable. But yeah, just some interesting things. I don't know if it really decided the game at all. I think the Packers just outplayed the Saints here. They made those, they just did. They did more than them on offense. That's why I picked them. And they, making a play like Zadarius Smith, making that play, kind of just did more on defense. Saints just kind of just didn't have enough. That was kind of the difference. There was times where it felt like they could have got the ball to Kamara more. Yeah, like I said, running a little more. Just feels like Murray's their running back and Kamara's their best receiver. It's a little odd. But yeah, wild game there. Both teams need to fix some things on defense. Not worried at all. Elite offense. No Devontae Adams, 37 points. Rodgers, Lazard, Aaron Jones, sensational. The offensive line was great. Trying to think about, I watched every single snap of this game. I'm trying to think if I'm forgetting. Something will probably pop in my head. But I think the video went long enough. That was a big time win for a lot of these teams. Let's say the Packers. A lot of these teams had some crazy wins. Great week, and it's not even done yet because we got the game of the week. The Ravens and the Chiefs at the Ravens. Going to be a good one. I'll be live tweeting throughout that entire game. It's a must follow there at Twitter. So please check that out, link in the description. Please like the video if you enjoyed. We do this every single Monday. Please subscribe, turn notifications on. We got you covered with full NFL content all year long. That's going to do it for this one, though. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.